Hello, are you out there? It's Mark with HFD, and I'm back with the first player I ever had to kick from one of my D&D games. This is coming from Sneaky Equestrian, who posted it on r/homebrew fever dreams. Thank you so much for sharing. Hey, stumbled across your videos and thought I'd share a tale of the worst DM/player I've played with. It's kind of long, so if you're looking for a long story for a video, here you go. I am, in fact, looking for very long stories. This happened 6 years ago now, and I was fresh out of college and taking a break from my normal D&D group I had played with for 3 to 4 years at the time. We're cool now, but there was some drama going on at the time and I needed some time away. But I still wanted to play D&D, so I started looking for an online group to play with. The first time I looked for a group out I saw that piqued my interest was for an Out of the Abyss game. The DM, let's call him John, was self-admittedly new to 5e and wanted to run Out of the Abyss for his wife. That's fine. I'm not gonna say anything. That game only lasted maybe 2 to 3 sessions before John got bored of running it, which should have been my first red flag. But it was your first red flag. It's just you maybe didn't acknowledge that it was at the time. But he asked if I'd like to join his ongoing campaign he was running since 2 people had just dropped out of it. So he had 2 openings. Without proper investigation, I would say 2 people dropping out of the campaign at the same time is probably your second red flag, or at the very least, your first yellow flag. So I would have dug in there a little bit. I only, and then also maybe yellow flag is the fact that he's running a campaign for his wife. There maybe is nothing wrong with that, fingers crossed, but there may be something very, very wrong with that. We're going to find out here. So I was still desperate for my D&D fix, so he told me about the setting. It's a 5e game that's Dragon Age inspired, where magic is illegal in the setting. Oh, I like that. I began making a wizard with a criminal background named King. Wow, that is a great character name. Oh my gosh. It's like any of the chess pieces. Bishop, Rook, Pawn. No one names their character Pawn. Think about it. Have you ever heard a pawn character name ever? Even for NPCs, there's no one called Pawn in fiction. Just prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, folks. There are no pawns out there. But all the other names are pretty sweet. So King, who is part of essentially a wizard gang who stole from the military authorized wizards, classic, stealing spell components, focuses the occasional spell scroll and selling them on the black market to other mages in hiding. Yeah, because, I mean, mages, anyone who is innately magical, because they can't necessarily control it, it's just in their blood, right? It just expresses out of them. So they would be definitely a hunted class within this world. That's actually exciting. And I think it's cool that you are deliberately tackling that part of the fictional world, like right from the beginning. You're making your character to come into conflict with the world your DM is presenting. I think that's pretty brave. I think that's cool. So when I made the character, he made a snide comment that the players who had left prior left because they didn't understand that the setting was full of people who hate magic. I go, that's so silly, because the fun of playing a mage in this setting is to get into conflicts. End quote. He agreed with that. So with what I said, so I thought we'd get along well enough. Oh, wow. I don't want to slow down the story too much, but yeah, hate. People that hate magic. So there is like a razor's edge here between it's illegal by those in power who wish to control the populace, and control who has the power in their kingdom or the world, versus people, all the people, like 99% of the people just hate magic users. In which case, that's a big handful of bigotry doo-doo. That might get a little overwhelming. It's questionable. I would say that having a little bit of enmity between species or classes, or towards species or classes in your world, I think it's a good way to color a fantasy world and bring it to life a little bit. For example, the enmity between elves and dwarves, a la any fantasy ever. But at the same time, you got to be careful as a DM when your dwarf character ends up in the tree city of the elves, maybe there's a couple sideways glances, or the lord of, or, lady of that land is a little standoffish towards the dwarf. But I would hesitate to really hit the player over the head with it. I would acknowledge it as like a wink wink to, like, again, just a little garnish on the whole table you've set, a little bit of flavor. But I wouldn't make too much of an impediment out of it. Personally, that's just me. Cause I don't know, is it unbalancing? Unfair? Unfun? Yeah. I'd go easy into bigotries and racism. I acknowledge that they exist in the world because, you're trying to say the world is a realistic place in a sense, so there's going to be some of that, but wouldn't go hard into the paint. There's a pretty sweet football reference there. All right, folks, let's keep going. The first thing I realized, though, as I joined this guy's game is that he's not really someone who understands 5e rules. I run a lot of 5e games at the time, and I didn't want to backseat DM, but he makes lots of comments about rules he was changing, and internally in my head, I'd be like, he's just so wrong about that, though. I do that all the time, especially when I'm reading people's stories. One example would be that he decided to use the variant flanking rules so everyone can have advantage if you're flanking. But his logic behind this was, rogues are useless if you don't have this variant rule because you can't sneak attack without it. Okay, I'm not gonna think too hard on that one. Let's see. Which is just OFC, just wrong. Rogues get sneak attack from having an ally threatening an enemy, even if they're not granted advantage from that. There you go. Yeah, it's 5e rules. It's different all over the place, but flanking. I think true flanking, like on each opposite side of an enemy, is kind of fun because it's representing, like, particularly for humanoid enemies, where they have like one set of forward-facing eyes and they can't look in both directions or defend both directions with their weapons at once. I like that. I think it makes sense. It adds to the verisimilitude of combat. But yeah, the rogue doesn't need it to help them out. I mean, the people that made 5e aren't just like, the main rogue function of sneak attack is broken as heck because it almost never comes up. But you know what? We're not going to fix that. No, it works. It works well, and rogues are extremely stabby. So I don't think they need any extra help with the flanking rules. But it's nice to have flanking sometimes. Sure. Let's continue on. So giving them constant advantage wasn't necessary to ensure rogues could get sneak attack. I didn't want to rock the boat though, and actually, actually, you're missing an in there. Actually, there should be an before your actually. I'm just saying. Just saying. So I always let these little things slide and let him run the game how he wanted to, even if he was misunderstanding the rules. The other players all seemed fine with it after all. All right. This culminates into a very insane TPK on session 3. Ooh. Okay, we're investigating a bunch of farmers running into issues with their cattle getting killed at night, and we can't seem to figure out what it is. So we decide to come back at night and see if we can witness the creatures in the act. We hear a noise and walk up to go see what it is. Next thing we know, we're being surprised by 4 hellhounds. Ooh. Oh yeah, they would like to eat cows a lot. And people, anything else really. We're 3 level 3 adventurers. We all died before we even got to make a single attack, let alone run away. John did apologize, but he didn't really own up to it. Just blamed the way 5e the way 5e does encounter balance. It seems he was having issues balancing encounters, so we'd only do 1 medium encounter per long rest and found they were too easy for the group. Yeah, just sure. Okay. He was just doing 1 encounter per long rest. That's probably not enough. Listen, I mean, I know I've done it myself. I'm not proud of that. But you can squeeze 2 to 3 encounters chained together before yielding a long rest to your players. Like no one's going to get the 6 to 8 they want, like per the rules. It's just not real. You'd get sick of like eating that much combat per session after session. But you got to stretch out a few combats for your character's resources. make your players think about where they're using them, and they don't go Nova every single combat. That's the main reason why. But 1 is not a lot. So he just went fully deadly via the encounter builder he used, figuring it wasn't accurate instead of ever trying to understand how those XP values were measured in the first place. I'm going to pause because I want to look up a Hellhound right now. I'll be right. All right, I'm back. Oh yeah, that is a hellacious creature. Oh my lord, I'm in my little roll 20. This is the 2014 Hellhound. Hold on, let's just see here. Got the burning hunger, evil to the core. Yeah, don't let your rangers try and tame one of these. It's not going to work, folks. Being nice to this pupper isn't going to bring him over to your side here. CR3. So you got 4 Hellhounds against 3 level 3 characters. Armor class of 15 is not bad. You can hit that. 45 hit points, though, is definitely more hit points than any of the characters at level 3. Right? Like, even a barbarian hill dwarf at level 3 isn't going to have that many hit points. Not even close. The speed of 50 makes them inescapable. That could be a problem. Perception, fire immunity. I won't really make that big of a deal. But let's see here. Pack tactics. The Hound has advantage on attack rolls against creatures if at least one of its allies is within 5 feet. That's not going to help. Plus, it just has flanking rules. Presumably, they work both ways. Bite. +5 to hit. 1d8 plus 3 piercing plus 2d6 fire. There you go. That right there would do it. Holy cows. Wow. And then the fire breath, recharge on a 5 or 6, so 1 out of 3 turns. We'll say it'll happen once in the combat. First turn. 15-foot cone. Each creature in the area must make a DC 12 Dex saving throw or take 66 fire damage. Half on a save. Which they don't save. We're looking at around 20 points of damage. 19-20 would be the average on that if they don't make the save, which would be enough to take some level 3s down. I would almost say the bite's the more serious part of that. In particular, if they roll a critical on it, that probably would kill a character outright, let alone put him to 0. I think, yes, your DM was not having a very strong grasp of the mechanics of 2014 5e rules and how the Hellhounds were going to eat the party alive. All right, I'll switch back. Yeah, there we go. Ugh. Smooth editing. No one even notices those transitions. All right. I sighed and tried to show him grace because he was new, but another player who had been a longtime player decided to quit not long after due to this moment and an incident that happens the next session. I'm just going to also just say one thing about that combat. 3 Hellhounds? Why would you overload the party with more powerful creatures? That's so far off. Oh, that's so far off. Even 1 Hellhound would have been a challenge for 3 level 3 adventures, let alone more than the party's number. Okay, that was silly. Apparently, prior to me joining, this player had talks with John about things he had done that made her uncomfortable. Specifically, gross out humor is very much something she finds very triggering, it seems. A lot of people do. Gross out humor can be funny in very rare occasions with the very right people, but a lot of people don't like it. Off-color humor. You got to be careful. You got to know who you're talking to. John made a big show of saying people need to tell him if you have triggers so he can avoid them. But despite this, it seems he constantly forgot this one player's triggers all the time. A scene plays out at the very beginning of the following session where John describes in detail how the previous session with the TPK was all just a bad dream while drunk, but then proceeds to describe our hangover symptoms in detail, including all of our players vomiting in extreme detail. Listen, I'm not going to lie, folks. Last night, a lot of bocce ball and heavy drinking, so I can relate, but I've got coffee here now, sobering up. But I think all he had to do was hand wave it away and say, it was a dream. Do-do-do, you're all awake. And he didn't even need the excuse of heavy drinking and the mass psychosis dream everyone in the party would have had together. That wasn't necessary. Certainly not describing vomit. I believe it was meant to be funny, but that player left the Discord call immediately without a word. John says, "Hold on, give me a second," leaves the call as well, presumably to talk to the player in private. When he comes back, he gave the announcement she was leaving the table, but they were still on good terms, and I only found out much later she had left because this had been a repeated boundary she had been tired of him crossing. But I didn't know that, so to me it just seemed like she left the session randomly, so I thought she was sick or something personal came up. Good assumption. This is the third player, though, this guy has lost in the last 4 sessions of play, presumably. The 2 before you started, and now a third one. That's a lot of red flags. It's a lot of red flags. Okay. However, that meant there was an opening, and I was still desperate to play D&D, so I invited my friend who's never played before. Let's call him Bob to play. He makes an Earth Genasi monk who's named Clay. It's clever. It's on the nose. I like that. Clay is cursed to be unable to harm people with his hands anymore. Oh, that's sad. Oh, that's so sad for him. What a bad curse. Jeez, I hope he breaks it someday and breaks someone's neck with his hands when that happens. Due to pissing off a witch, in classic fairy tale nature, he's on a quest to rid himself of his curse. Yeah, who doesn't want to be able to hurt people with their hands? I mean, that's like tragic. How it works functionally is he has the UA Way of Tranquility Monk that could heal with key points. Flavor-wise, we flavored it. His fist could only heal. Yes. And he could harm with the bow staff. But his character was on a quest to rid himself of this curse. Yeah, he wants to punch people to death again. That makes sense. Who wouldn't want to do that? Just justice and hatred. DM had allowed us to keep our characters from the TPK, and we were just starting the campaign over from scratch in the same setting. Oh no. No, a total reset? From scratch. No. You pick up where you left off? King and Clay quickly became a very enjoyable duo to roleplay around. King is very dishonest and outwardly standoffish, but was a kind-hearted freedom fighter deep down. Clay, on the surface, is very honorable and lawful, but he is quick to anger if he finds people being dishonorable, which is how he got cursed in the first place. They'd constantly bicker in a very enjoyable way to roleplay, and it was a great time, even if the quests we were on were very bog-standard, generic D&D quests. Go kill some goblins, etc. Sorry. It's a coffee burp. Oh, I hope no one's dislikes gross stuff. Shit. Well, we're going to keep going here. We're going to, I'll edit that out. No, I'm not going to edit that out. Eventually, though, the DM has our party stumble across some mysterious hooded man in a tavern. Since I'm the most experienced one at D&D, I've been a little afraid of taking point and deciding for the group, so I often let the group decide what to do. That's excellent advice from an experienced role player, because it helps bring up the newer role players around you and develop their role-playing chops. So good on you, and I would always recommend any experienced player take a little bit of a backseat. And only if things stall out and the group's just kind of is equivocating, and you realize, and you're like, oh my gosh, nothing. We've been sitting here talking about this for 5 minutes. Then step in, use your leadership, your experience to get the ball rolling again. Yeah, good on you though. The very next tavern, so they decide to ignore this guy and leave the tavern. Classic rookie mistake. They're imbeciles. Clearly, you need to step in. The very next tavern we go to, the hooded guy is there again, and the party ignores it. What's a hook? I don't know. Is that for fishing? Yeah, fishing for roleplay. Feeling bad for John, who is clearly trying to make this the thing for the session, I go and talk to the NPC. It turns out that he is... It's all caps, but I know exactly what you're going to say. The most powerful mage in all of the land, and leader of the mage resistance. And he takes us to the secret mage resistance hideout. It's a little ham-fisted, but I'm excited we're finally actually getting some actual plot points instead of just doing chores all the time in-game Lol. That's right. You can only clear the rats out of so many tavern basements until it just becomes old. You're like, your basement's pretty clean, sir. Surely there is something else you need us to help you with. No, no, that was it. Just the rats in the basement. You know. The first thing the all-powerful cool wizard does is turn to clay, and oh, again, I know exactly. This is a good one. This is a good one. I like this. He turns to clay and is like, "Oh, you're cursed?" Question exclamation. Do you want to not be cursed anymore? And Clay responds in character, "Of course he doesn't." The wizard just magically fixes Clay's curse, and the rest of the session is spent rebuilding Bob's character as a normal monk. Fun. Oh no. Oh wow. Joe, John, as you said, is a new DM. That is clunky AF. Pro tip to any DMs out there: don't change your player's character without their okay and buy-in. And I don't mean that by having an NPC directly ask the PC, "Hey, do you want to be changed?" Like, out of session, between sessions, like, build to this, have the conversation, make sure it is the direction the player wants to go. Because why? Oh, I'm timing out here. I'm getting distracted on a side tangent. But this is important. Why would you get the buy-in from your PC? From your player. Your player puts the flaw into their character for the sake of roleplay. It's something they decide to do, not unlike how OP's character is a wizard, is a magic user, simply for the fact of having difficulty in roleplay and drama for their character. You don't just sit there and say, "Oh, you know what? You guys magically teleport to a new country where there is no prejudice or bias against magic users. That's gone. That's not a thing anymore. I fixed it for you. Aren't you happy?" Why would that make your players happy to take away the flaws that they built into their characters specifically for the roleplay drama? It doesn't make sense. It's like, "Oh, hey guys, I thought you might find combats hard, so I just decided there won't be any more combats." Pretty cool, huh? You're like, "What? We're playing the game for the combats. We're playing the game for the drama, for the roleplay." So always work it out with your players, so that any major change to their character is something that happens through roleplay with their buy-in. Okay. Okay, that's ugly. That's pretty ugly. The wizard just magically fixes Clay's curse and yeah, okay. This maybe like 4 sessions in playing with Bob. This was, yeah, okay. He was just sitting there in like semi-stunned silence that had just happened to him. No more character growth. Not even a quest needed to break the curse. It just broken immediately. It was just broken immediately. Yeah. I'm unsure if John realized he fucked up by doing that. If he felt the growing disappointment with the way these sessions had been going, or if he was simply just being a fickle man. But a few sessions later, he decided he doesn't want to play 5e anymore. Yeah. What's going on? I don't want to overthink it, but what's going on in John's head is he is struggling to generate a story that's engaging for the players. So he's kind of flailing with grabbing out at character world backstory stuff, trying to slot it in and say, "Oh, this should be something that matters in this world. Let's." But he's not letting the players drive it. Yeah? Is that it? I don't know. That's as ham-fisted as anything I've ever heard, though. Let's continue. He explains the setting itself was poorly conceived, and you realized recently, why would an anti-magic society not have anti-magic fields all over the city to prevent you from doing magic all the time? It is not the problem here, buddy. And also how originally he wanted the world to be low magic so people wouldn't play wizards or sorcerers in 5e. And had hoped the setting would be a deterrent. Oh, okay. he wants to, he wants a Hyborian Age, Conan, low magic thing where there's very little magic. There's a little magic, but there's very little magic. And in general, it's ancient and inaccessible to the players in the party. You can do that. Two things you need to do, though. You need to, number one, tell your players that that's what you're doing. Don't make wizards and clerics and sorcerers and warlocks. You need to make barbarians and rogues and rangers and right? Okay. And secondly, make sure you have the buy-in of your players to do that. Now, to be fair, any player to the game, any player who's signing up for that campaign should understand that is what's going to be there and tacitly buy in simply by joining the campaign. But yeah, it's a conversation. It's like saying, hey guys, this is the type of game we're going to run. This is session 0 or before session 0 conversation. And then secondly, as the DM, you don't then, the rule is that players don't just make wizards and sorcerers and just, it's just a party of casters. Isn't this going to be pretty traumatic for them in a world that hates and suppresses their magic? No, then you just be like, sorry, those classes are off the table. That's not what we're doing here. Ooh, okay. Ill-conceived? I don't think it's a bad concept at all. I think it sounds very fun, but the fact that John doesn't even know how to express to his players that that's what he's trying to do, that is really the flaw, is that he has it in his mind of how it's going to go, and then when it doesn't go the way he imagined it in his mind, with no expression into the real world of what he wanted, and then he's surprised it failed. Yeah. He's like, I dreamt this thing, and then it didn't happen in the real world the next time we played the game. And it's just like, yeah, man, your dreams are in your head. You're gonna have to tell us about your dreams if you want them to be understood and conceived in this world. Newbie mistake, maybe lack of creativity, maybe lack of understanding how like humans read each other and understand each other. Possibly. Sounds like there's a lot of stuff going on with John there. Let's continue. Yeah, magical. Originally, okay. And he hoped the setting would be a deterrent, which was just never the vibe I got during character creation. Again, it seemed the vibe he'd wanted was to make magic a cool conflict, especially because we had a party bard that was able to cast in towns just fine, because apparently bards had divine magic, so they're cool, unlike wizards, and that was never an issue for the DM, but whatever. Oh my gosh. No, he did the divine arcane divide. That is I understand that is a trope-esque type of thing that comes up in fantasy and certainly in people's role-play games a lot, but that is very much a DM who's just like, I don't like to play wizards, sorcerers, or warlocks, so I am going to also not want my players to play them. No, man, that's not how you do it. That'd be like choosing the deity list of being like, yeah, there's like 40 deities in the pantheon, but I only like these 8. And so whatever divine magic or religion your characters you choose for them better be in these 8. Don't do the other ones. So I really don't like those other deities in the fiction. It's like, why would you do that? That's what's going on, though. That is 100% what's going on. And it almost only ever happens to arcanes, although to a lesser degree, I would say it happens to divines. There's no divine healing. I mean, that was literally one of the storylines for the old Dragonlance, right? No divine healing. But people like Raceland the Mage had magic. So it was like the opposite of that. I wouldn't do either one of those. Just personal recommendation to any experienced or new DMs out there. Don't limit class choice. I wouldn't even limit species choice, ancestry choice, to players personally. If it's in the books, let them have at it. Fit it into your world. You can do that. Even if it's a rare ancestry or something, you can fit it in your game world, make an exception for your player. You telling your story and be like, there's no dwarves in this world. It's like, well, what are you getting out of that? It's not going to be a movie series someday in Hollywood, and the fact that there's no dwarves is really key to your, don't sweat it, man. Just, if it's in a fantasy book somewhere, in general, I would say allow it. I've never been a player in a game And I've never met a player in any game who's been like, yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, there were no Asimar. And I found that really compelling. Never said anyone ever, never. It's just, the players don't care. They barely even notice. It's just the limiting thing you put on their choice for creativity when they're creating their character. That's all it does. No one's ever like, oh my gosh, no Asimars. I see how that works. Oh, really brings the world to life. No, never. Never. He decided he wants to play Pathfinder 1E now instead of 5E. Oh, crud. Are you... Nothing against Pathfinder 1E, but unless you are... Pathfinder First Edition is crunchy AF. And if this guy's struggling with rules and balance mechanics... And not to say that Pathfinder 1E is probably easier to balance encounters, but there's just way, way more rules to master. Even if balance is kind of done pretty well for you by the way it's set up. Dude's going to struggle. Oh my gosh. And I was still under the misguided charitability that he was just inexperienced, and with more experience, he'd be a normal DM. Everything up until the next point just feels like beginner mistakes after all. Ish. I agree. However, what really starts to bring out the nightmarish behavior from him is when I offer for him to join my games. Yes. What is going to happen? Sounds like a nightmare story. Dare I say a horror story? Yes, I dare. My original friend group and I had made up, and we were itching to play together, but we all realized we had so many friends we wanted to play with. At the same time, it would be a good opportunity to try and make a West Marches campaign. Humble brag there. And so many friends. And they're all pretty sweet role players. It's just so... So we have 5 DMs and 30 players in this server, and it functions a little bit like Adventures League. Shared setting, but multiple DMs. But we would post like quests, and players would blah 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 blah. So no, in my brain, I'm just too many commas here. It'd be a little bit like Adventures League, shared settings, but multiple DMs. But we would post like quests, and players would sign up to join quests run by different DMs. Okay, I don't understand that sense, but we'll keep going. And so, since this allowed for more people to play D&D, I invited everyone at this guy's table to come play in the server, but this is when it all began to spiral. Whew, I got you. You invited this group to join your big Adventures League-esque server group. Very cool. John joins, and we explained the game to him is kind of survival-esque frontier town where you're trying to build up a town together with the other players. Ooh, I like that. That sounds fun. I want to do that. Bounties and quests were to gather resources and clear out monsters, and OFC, this would lead into larger plots later. So he decides to roll up a Beastmaster Ranger, which sounds great to all of us. Before session 1 begins, he's talking in the server about how he's excited to play his Beastmaster Ranger with the other players. He brings up that he likes the idea that his Panther pet could knock an enemy prone. A little pounce ability. That's cool. I like that. Whenever right. To give him advantage at range with his bow. That is not how it works. Oh no. But another player responds, but that is not how it works. You get disadvantage unless you're in melee. Right. A ranged attack in D&D 5e, if a creature's prone and you're making a ranged attack, prone helps them because they're taking cover. It's just, it's hit the deck. The arrow's going to fly right over their heads. I pipe up when they begin to argue and say that, yep, that's how prone works. You have less body mass to hit, so you got to be melee if you want that advantage. He proceeds to argue with me about how that's dumb and the rules are dumb. Oh, buddy, take it up with WotC. Holy shit. Which is frustrating because I never argued with him when I felt he made dumb rulings in his game. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he wants to play a ranger type with a pet panther. You're like, Oh no. Like what, my scimitars aren't automatically +2? It's like, no, you're a level 1 character. You'll have to go find those magical scimitars, my friend. Both of them. Um mm, what could you do? You would work it out, to be nice as a DM. The guy wants to play a ranger, he wants to have a pet panther. Rework the panther stat block a little tweak so that the ability isn't a pounce to knock prone, but a pounce to, I don't know, hold someone up by the scruff of their neck so they can't go prone and that it is easier to hit them. I don't know. Something, but there's better ideas than that, but you'll come up with something. That's what I would do. Just as an advice to any DM out there, like, what do you do in this situation? A player has it in their mind how they want their character to work and, like, what the what the IP they're ripping off is. But yeah, I would just tweak the Panther's mechanics so they can still have the Panther. It does something cool. It's just not knocking prone. Whatever. Okay. He decides he doesn't want to play the Ranger anymore. Oh, I feel for him. That sucks. They didn't understand how that would work. And decides he wants to play a time-themed spellcaster. That's cool. That's also cool. At the time, the Critical Role time-themed wizard wasn't out yet, so he brings me a homebrew sorcerer that is royally overpowered and asks to play it. The West Marcher server rules is homebrew is allowed as long as all 5 DMs okay the homebrew, and the 4 other than me turned it down before I even got to make my own ruling about it. But I would turn it down. He was pretty upset by this, so I decide I'm going to try to help him find a good homebrew and present a time wizard I find. He accepts it at first, and the DMs all approve it, but then he decides to go finally read the handouts on the campaign we had put out that he hadn't read before doing character creation. Oh boy. Okay. It's no big deal. That's not insurmountable. As we become more experienced as DMs and GMs and as players, we learn to align with each other to make things fit. That you have it in your head, like, what is the character you want to play? Sure. But if you've got to massage and change 10-20% of what's on the stat thing to make it work, you do it. So when the DM says, no, I can't let you have that ability, that's too OP, you don't sit there and rip the character sheet in half. You say, oh, okay, let's try it this way. It will have a savings pro then, which will roughly have the damage half the time. Will that work? And the DM's like, yep, that's a good modification. It's no longer OP. And but it takes experience on both sides to meet each other in the middle. Not unlike having a Panther with a pounce ability and saying, oh, let's take away the pounce and we'll give your Panther some other ability. Functionally, your character concept is identical. It's just that one thing because it directly breaks the official rules in the game book. Yeah. So, yeah, yeah. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. I feel for John though, because it's yeah. But but then also to be fair, he really should be reading the handouts, the basic handout of like, this is the campaign you're joining. Probably he should have started with that. Yeah, that's just a maturity thing. Like, that's just common sense. I don't know what else to say. All right. We were playing mostly raw, but because the game involved a ton of travel, we decided to make long rests an entire week instead of just one day, with the understanding that the random encounters you saw while traveling would be accounted for into the encounter day. That meant that one encounter you saw on the road to the dungeon you end up in has some more consequences. You either spend time in rations to do a long rest after arriving at the dungeon, after the fight, but before you arrive at the dungeon, or when you arrive at the dungeon, or have to manage your spell slots in that random encounter more carefully to then go straight into the dungeon. I like that. I think that's a good mechanic. And as long as that's known within your server in your West Marches, totally good. I think that's a good solution to. Again, you want to stretch your players. You want to force your players to stretch their characters' capabilities and resources. It is a really interesting, dare I say, fun part of the D&D role play. Yeah. So He felt this was an attack on long rest classes and was going to nerf wizards and was really upset. I explained to him it wasn't going to nerf wizards because they'd still be fighting the same amount of monsters per long rest, and that he should try playing some sessions to feel it out before being so quick to declare wizards were completely nerfed. None of the other 30 players in the servers had issues with these rules after all. And when we played it, it was never an issue for wizards in the end. Yeah, I find it so interesting how some people fixate very much on like on what's presented to them in these stacks and stacks of books, hundreds of pages in these base books for the D&D in particular. We're talking like 800 plus pages or something between the monster manual, the DM's G, and the player's handbook, and that somehow like what's in there they cannot work within. It's just like it's too restrictive. It doesn't let me do what I want. It's like, man, I'm just gonna say this to everyone out there: use your imagination, use a little creativity. You can figure it out. Just it's like, yeah, some classes rely more on short rests. Some are powered by long rests, and in general, it's going to balance out. And in particular, if the server you're on or the whatever the campaign you're in is trying to balance and make sure that multiple encounters occur between long rests, then yeah, that's in the rules. The creators have thought of it. They're not just pulling this out of their ass here, right? So it should be relatively balanced. I guess I'm just complaining that so many players out there just thinking that it's just broken, that many people have not thought about it and played tested it professionally, and that they're just the only ones who've ever realized a flaw in the mechanics of whatever edition of D&D. It's like there are flaws, admittedly, but in general, okay, let's keep going. John is muffing it. John is muffing it hard here. On top of that, he was picking spells for his time wizard and was upset that the homebrew document only added a few time spells per level for him to pick from, and that he couldn't make all of his spells time themed. It's just a limited number of time based spells, and you're getting some extra ones from the homebrew, a couple per level, whatever, every few levels. You work with it, John. You can work with it. You don't need 30 time themed spells, my man. And other magic still exists, FYI. I said, look, this is kind of a problem with all wizards. My wizard in his game couldn't take only illusion spells all the time, so I reflavored things like magic missile and suggested he could do things to flavor his spells, i.e. make Misty Step like a rewind or fast forward time effect. Absolutely. Just color changes, theme changes to spells, as long as it's not mechanically changing anything about it, 100%. Again, this is kind of what I mentioned earlier of like, hey folks, just use a little imagination, just use a little creativity, and I think you can work it out. Ugh. He declared I was being a Munchkin player. I honestly don't even know what that means. I own Munchkin the game and I play Munchkin a lot, but I literally don't know what that means in this context of this conversation you and John are having here. For some reason, he repeatedly used the phrase, "Are we role playing or role playing OP?" Okay. I thought this was a role playing game and not a role playing one. Holy shit, that would get so annoying. Which confused me a lot. I just kind of felt like he was mad I was more knowledgeable on the system than him and was taking it out on me in these spats. That is 100%. He's 100% using you as a punching bag because he knows you, and I can almost guarantee, just by what I've learned of John over this very long post, that he's not throwing this kind of shade at the other 4 DMs on your server. I can guarantee he does not seem like the kind of guy who would have the cojones to throw this kind of shade at people he doesn't know. Only his friends and acquaintances. That is a flaw many of us have, though. Admittedly, we all kind of fall into that, where when we have that comfort level with people, we somehow take it as license to be shittier or snarkier to them. See it in yourself if that's something you do, or when you do it, acknowledge that you shouldn't. recognize it, try and move on. Just pro life advice to everyone out there. It's easy to abuse the people we know best. Recognize it, try and avoid doing it. It is a character flaw. IRL character flaw. Yeah, he's using you as a punching bag. That sucks, OP. Sneaky equestrian. Ooh, I remember. Which confused me a lot. It kind of felt, yeah, okay. So he scraps the wizard idea. Again, this is all before sessions actually started. Oh my gosh. Jeez, this really seems like a lack of imagination. Which ties into the portions of your post here, Sneaky Equestrian, where he's the DM, and it's just like, oh, do you want your curse removed? And you're like, why? Wait, why would that be fun? Why would we do that? No, we want. Do you not understand the cool part of the curse with this monk who heals things with his hands as opposed to hurts them? Do you not get why that's interesting? And John's like, I don't understand why that's cool. Why would you do that? That seems lame. And you're like, ooh. Yeah. I don't think John's very imaginative. It's such a mean thing to say. I feel so bad. I hope John doesn't ever hear this, but the guy lacks imagination. I don't know what to tell you. He is not creative. He is not creative. It's like he's in preschool and he's got the box of crayons and he just takes the black crayon out, draws on the white paper, sees the high contrast between the black and white, and then takes the other 63 colors and just throws them in the trash can. He's just a little 4-year-old kid drawing with one color on paper. So it all comes to life in my mind. Yeah. It's a lack of creativity. He doesn't get how you guys are having fun. Literally, he says, I don't understand how you guys enjoy this. What's going on here? It's like, whoa. Okay. But he makes a cleric instead and actually starts playing him thank the Lord. But some new problems emerge with his behavior towards others. Oh my gosh, this is long. I'm looking at the little bar over here. You guys can't see it. This is really long, which is fine. No complaints. The majority of us were fresh out of college, which meant some of the players had younger siblings that were 16 and 17 and wanted to join too. We allowed that and said the server was PG-13 in tone. Yeah, for me, 16 is for adults. 16 is the minimum cutoff. I think at 16, 17, kids are becoming young adults, and I think it's fine to try and include them where it's safe to do so in adult activities, where it's safe to do so. Parent buy-in, that kind of stuff, supervision, yeah. John, for some reason, did not get this memo. He didn't get the memo or the memo, either one. He would repeatedly make very sexual jokes in the presence of the minors, and I'd have to reprimand him. Yeah. Making off-color jokes with people you know pretty well is probably okay. And if anyone you ever know well comes along after you've known them for months or years and says, those are a little too off-color for me. Do you mind? And you go, oh, absolutely. I didn't realize. And then you don't make those off-color jokes around those people you know well who've asked you not to. I only say this because you don't got to police everything you do. Like when you get to know people, you get a feel for them, you're comfortable, you're good acquaintances or friends. You know what? You can mix it up a little bit more. Hopefully your good friends or acquaintances will let you know when you've crossed a line, and then you'll be respectful and say, oh, you know what? I respect that line of yours. I won't do that anymore. Sorry, sometimes I think something's funny and it's not. You go, oh man, absolutely. We all do that. That's like friendship. That's acquaintanceship. In getting to know people, but you would never make sex jokes around children you don't know. And yeah. Okay, that is weird. That's weird. Okay. You reprimand him. At the very least, you say something, and then he should the first time get it and not do it again. Let's see what happens. He'd get confused and go, why? We're all adults here. Why can't I make that joke? And I'd have to remind him that we're not all adults here. Actually, some people had brought their little siblings to play with us. And even if we were all adults, the jokes are highly inappropriate to be making. Very sexual and very uncomfortable. Yeah, and again, this isn't about policing speech and thoughts. It's that when you have a large group of 30 plus people, if everyone's just making their own off color sex jokes or mildly, bigotry adjacent jokes and stuff, and everyone's like, yeah, we can just do what we want, we're all adults, and it's like, no, you're almost guaranteed to rub some people the wrong way. Your jokes will rub some people the wrong way, other people's off-color jokes will rub some other people the wrong way, and people will get offended, similar to a workplace. And that is why at the workplace or at school, it really isn't appropriate to make subtle, jokes that single out certain groups or demographics of people, or sex jokes or gross out jokes. This isn't like your just personal table with your 4 closest friends that you've grown up with for the last 8 years of your life, and you can all just kind of say whatever you want. This is functionally a group of strangers. It's a big group of strangers. So that should just be common sense. And certainly, if it's not common sense, when you're called out on it, you go, oh, sorry, I won't do it again. And then if they push back on that, you probably right there have grounds to just ban them from the server. We're like, well, I don't like that. I don't want to follow those rules. And you're like, and that's our problem. You don't belong on the server. That's rough. Where the hell are we? We had an art channel for posting art in specifically of your character. He had his wife, who's an artist, make some art for his cleric kissing her fairy character from his character's backstory. Sorry, that was, yeah. But the fairy character was entirely nude, titties out and all. Just you got a link to this art server? No. So, I had to again reprimand him that the server was PG-13 and he can't just be posting nude bodies in there. It's just like, guy, this ain't the server for that. There are a lot of servers for that, but this is not one of those many servers for that. Also, it wasn't just me, and he had taken a bad attitude. Oh, he had taken a bad attitude with. Oh, wow. There was one other female DM who was my college roommate. I was unaware after we kicked him out that he had done this, but to her. But one day he messaged her for some questions about the campaign, but she didn't have her rule book on her because she was drinking at a bar. She said she would be able to help, wouldn't be able to help him because she was currently drunk. He takes that opportunity to begin hitting on her and making sexual jokes about her. Oh, wow. These guys are the worst. Oh, yeah. Fuck, dude. I'm so sorry. I am apologizing for all mankind. That is rough. Oh, you're intoxicated. Let me get typing. Oh, I'm gonna get laid. That is rough. She immediately shuts him down and says how inappropriate the behavior was. He never tried that again with her, but would complain to other players in the West Marshall server that she was I'm not going to say the B word, who wasn't a good DM and only got a DM role because she was, I'm not going to say that, was being the only good DM. That is really, really a gross way to speak about other people. Wow. In public, you could think it. You could think what you want in your mind. You don't have to like everyone. You could be like, oh, that person's raving. But you don't put it out there, probably in permanent text on the internet where it will never disappear, where there's logs of this. And he's just spewing it out. This is a really poison pill, this John character you're describing. She was in a relationship with one of the other DMs, but that's not why she was a DM for this server. She was a DM because I specifically asked her to. I asked both her and her partner to DM for the server, not the other way around. Wow, there's so many red flags at this point with this John guy. I probably should have kicked him out for all his behavior. Yeah. once you got knowledge of it. But I almost felt like it was my fault for inviting him, and I was really trying to make things work. Geez, there's stuff you can just let slide. If someone's a little flaky with making it to games on the regular, and it's not offending everyone else, it's not great for the team or the squad. That's the kind of flaw you can let slide and be like, you know what, we're not going to boot them from the group. When they can show up to play, we'll accommodate them. It makes things a little clunky, a little harder for everyone else, but it's okay. They have shit going on. They have a busy life. You let that stuff slide. But people literally being like, this person only gets to do what they do on our server because they're a slut. And you're like, whoa, like that's just straight like, nope, dude. That's so misogynistic. That's so toxic and aggressive. And I don't want to say it's hateful more than hurtful. That's really bad stuff. It's just I don't say the word toxic masculinity. I don't think I've said that phrase once in years of doing this channel, but that is toxic masculinity. It's just like, oh, women. It's just like whether she's a woman or a dude just has nothing to do with any of it. It's stabbing at someone's like literally with a dagger, saying, because I stab at thee because thee are a woman. Because you are female is what this attack is about. It's like, uh, again, he can think and feel inside in his hidden way however he would like. I would never tell anyone that you can't carry poison inside of your heart and your mind. You can. It's actually a little bit normal, but you don't let it out into the world because there will be consequences. Pro tip, folks. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Where the hell are we? Prior to this, I thought he was just a newbie DM who wasn't a very well versed on the rules. The straw to break the camel's back didn't come from the West Marches, but from his Pathfinder first edition game he was running at the same time as my West Marches server. Whew, we're closing in here. I can see the cursor getting towards the bottom. When we began making our characters, all I knew is I want to play a class that doesn't exist in D&D 5e. Oh. Since I don't get to play Pathfinder very often. Yeah, right. All the classes in Pathfinder more or less don't exist in 5e-ish, right? I guess some are adjacent, right? This is like the champion versus the paladin. Okay. I didn't know what kind of setting we were playing in, but I asked John if I could play a vigilante. John had no cues. They didn't fit. No, John said no. Oh, fuck, sorry. John said no because they don't fit the theme of the campaign. Oh, okay. Personally, again, I will restate, don't restrict stuff that's in the book to your players. Just they will never appreciate that restriction. It'll never add to the world for them. It just won't. In your story, it's all cool, but your story's not for your sake as a DM or a GM. It's for the player's sake, and it'll just be transparent to them. They will see through glass that there's some restriction. Okay. I can't express that enough. Your players will not get it. Normally, I would have left it at that, but I looked at my best friend Bob, who's making his character at the moment. Bob is playing a business druid. Why is it all in caps? Is that a thing? I don't know what a business druid is. He worked for the corporation The Outdoors. Oh wow, that's actually kind of clever. It's like a Clockwork Orange. It's just you can't squeeze juice out of a Clockwork Orange, and there can't be a corporation for the outdoors. I get it. That's actually really cool. He had an intern that was just his squirrel formula. It just works for peanuts. He dressed in modern day business attire for a campaign that was set in typical high fantasy. This was indeed a funny character. However, I didn't understand why Bob could play a funny corporate shill business druid and I had vigilante shut down. Hey, them's the rules. I don't know what to tell you. So I didn't let it go. I began to inquire about John's reasoning, and this quickly became a debate, even though that's not what I wanted either. John yells, "You win! You can play the vigilante! Vigilante! I don't care." And that isn't what I wanted either. I hadn't been attached to the vigilante. I just wanted some explanation why Bob could play the funny druid and I couldn't play the vigilante. I gotcha. I eventually left the Discord call we were in, and Bob told me he had to explain to John, "Fine, you win," isn't exactly a good conflict resolution strategy. It feels like I was specifically being targeted. Like he had a grudge against me due to West Marches and was bleeding into this game. Uh, I'll just quick pause, question, time out here. It's a little late now, but like, did John have an explanation for why vigilante wasn't allowed within the fiction or the theme of his world? It's like, no, that's not on the list. Versus, well, you see, the reason a vigilante wouldn't exist, which is almost impossible. It's like, sorry, you can't play a Zorro type. That's not possible in this world. And you're like, Zorro, Robin Hood types exist in all fictions of all genres for all time. FYI. I mean, Don Quixote is practically a vigilante type. I mean, is he? Yeah, he is, right? It goes all the way back. So there is no explanation John could have provided for why a vigilante couldn't be pigeonholed into any fictional roleplay system of any kind. Any kind. Sci-fi, supers, uh, 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 horror, Lovecraftian horror. Anything can take a vigilante type. But business druid type in modern day clothing, probably there would be a lot of game worlds where that would be suitable. So I get your point. John is definitely targeting you, 100%. Time in. This was the first time I had argued with him at his table because it just felt like such a dumb reason to say no to me and not to Bob. Yeah, yeah. And it's not about Bob, it's Bob's character. Why would you say no to my character but not to Bob's character? Yeah. The character I actually decide to build, I try to design with the rest of the party in mind. I have a pretty good knowledge of how to optimize characters, so I made the conscious decision to do two things. Play a supportive character that way if everyone fumbles making their characters much weaker than mine, I'm not going to overshadow them since I'll be a support. Yeah, you're not going to be OP relative to them. And two, I was going to be taking early feats and background choices that I found fun for character flavor, but aren't inherently good or powerful, I would say you mean, since I expected all the other players to fall into the noob trap of making really underpowered Pathfinder characters because of all the trap bad options. Yeah. Yeah. Pathfinder, you can make amazing underpowered characters. You can flavor your Pathfinder characters any way you want. It's just, will they be functional and playable in the world that your GM's going to make for you? Questionable. And it gets worse and worse because of the way Pathfinder locks in the monster projection relative to your player level. For as creative as Pathfinder lets you make a character, it doesn't let that character be very effective within the rules system, the combat system. So I made an Inquisitor with the Love Domain where I was going to focus a lot on both charm spells and healing spells. I used my background feature to make a bigger chunk of starting gold, rich parents. To make use of the level 1 feat, I decided to take that would give me heavy armor proficiency, something Inquisitors didn't have by default. I simply just really like the aesthetic of heavy armor. Yeah, it's cool as hell. And dwarves, I get you. It wasn't for any tactical reason, and throwing both a feat and a background feature toward getting it delayed any possible good Inquisitor build by a whole level. Oh, we're so close. Despite this, when I presented it to John, he was upset with me being a min-maxer and went back to his role-playing versus role-playing line, saying I wasn't thinking about the character narrative. He also hated the character lore I had made, though. She was a naive believer of love and passion and set off on an adventure to help people fulfill those loves and passions, is love singular? I don't read so good. I thought it left a lot of room for fun roleplay and also room for her naivety to be challenged. Instead, John insisted a character with a happier backstory could never become an adventurer. Then his tune changed again, and instead of insisting my character was broken, he decided to insist heavy armor is horrible, actually, and that if my character falls off a boat, she'll just drown in it. Cool. So my character's one weakness, drowning, apparently. He was only stopped by Bob going, "You never gave me this much grief over me wanting to have a squirrel familiar as my intern." And John backed off for a bit, but at this point, I'm just fuming. I feel attacked and belittled for no reason. For John, a DM who wasn't even competent at DMing, in my opinion, was beginning to think about leaving the group and of removing him from West Marches. Luckily, I didn't have to. We gave Pathfinder a few sessions to test it out. We had a total of 5 players, but 2 of them decided to leave. One of the original players from John's very first games, who somehow stuck it out this long, said they didn't have time to keep playing D&D every week anymore and dipped. So that's 4 of John's original people have gone, and that you know of. That's big red flags. It's not just you, OP. It's not, clearly. Bob took that as his excuse to leave, since he had been unhappy since the Clay incident. This all happened while I was asleep, and I woke up to a flurry of messages from John, who was decrying the 2 players who left as immature and big babies for leaving. That he was tired of having to constantly restart his game all the time. I don't know why my games are always screwed up with that idea. What's wrong with everyone else? Oh, man. That's some cope there. That's some serious cope. Despite him being the one to do that. And now him and his wife are the only mature ones around. I snapped and blocked him on everything and kicked him out of the West Marches server. I was just so sick of his attitude towards me, but on top of that, acting like he was the only mature one in the group, and all the other 2 did as... He was the only mature one in the group when all the other did was leave his D&D game. When all the others did was leave his D&D game. So, okay. It was just such weird and pathetic behavior. Yes. 100%. And look, folks, look, there we are. It is done. 'Tis done. Our group was better without him, and I was happy to play in games ran by other people who were much more competent at making a satisfying gaming experience. Whew. Wow. Oh my gosh. I can hear my family is out here like making breakfast, clanking around in the kitchen, because this was a long one. If anyone got through all this with me, thank you so much. What a great read, OP, Sneaky Equestrian. Thank you for sharing this with me. Till next time, folks. Art, I got your story coming up next, my man. Thank you.